There are weapons that dominate the battlefield, and then there are platforms that control entire regions, not because of a single strike, but because of what they represent: presence, power, and the ability to act anywhere, at any time. During the Cold War, one of the most powerful symbols of American strength didn't fly above the ocean. It sailed on it, a floating airbase, a mobile force, capable of projecting power across the globe without relying on foreign soil. Because in a world divided by ideology, control of the seas meant control of options. This is the story of the aircraft carrier that helped define that control, the USS Nimitz, and how it became one of the most important tools of American strategy during the Cold War. At the height of the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union competed not just on land, but across oceans. Naval power became critical, not only for defense, but for influence, the ability to position forces near potential conflict zones, to respond quickly, to operate without delay. For the United States, this required something unique, a system that could carry air power anywhere in the world without needing a base, because fixed locations could be targeted, restricted, or politically limited. But a carrier could move, adapt, position itself where it was needed most. And that is where the USS Nimitz came in, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier designed for endurance, for scale, and for sustained operations far from home. Unlike earlier carriers, the Nimitz didn't rely on conventional fuel in the same way. Its nuclear propulsion allowed it to operate for extended periods without refueling, giving it a level of independence that changed naval operations. But power alone wasn't enough. What made the Nimitz truly significant was what it carried: dozens of aircraft, fighters, attack planes, early warning systems, all operating from a single platform, all ready to launch within minutes. Because the carrier wasn't just a ship, it was an entire air force, at sea, positioned wherever it was needed. This gave the United States something critical during the Cold War: flexibility, the ability to respond to crises without waiting, without negotiating basing rights, without revealing intentions too early. The Nimitz could arrive quietly, position itself, and then project power when necessary. And if you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where strategy wasn't just about weapons, but about positioning and control, consider subscribing, because what the USS Nimitz would soon demonstrate was that dominance didn't always come from a single system. Sometimes it came from the ability to bring everything you needed anywhere in the world. Once deployed, the USS Nimitz didn't operate alone. It became the center of something much larger: a carrier strike group, destroyers, cruisers, submarines beneath the surface, all moving together, all protecting the most valuable asset in the formation. Because while the Nimitz projected power, it also had to be defended. The Soviet Union understood this. Their naval strategy evolved around countering carrier groups, long-range bombers equipped with anti-ship missiles, submarines designed to track and engage, surface ships built to operate in coordinated attacks. Because neutralizing a carrier wasn't just about sinking a ship. It was about removing an entire air capability from the battlefield. And that made every deployment a test, not just of strength, but of awareness. Because the carrier had to operate in contested environments, where it could be tracked, where it could be targeted, where it had to remain one step ahead. On board the Nimitz, operations never stopped. Aircraft launched continuously. Patrols extended outward, covering vast areas of ocean, watching, listening, because the first line of defense wasn't weapons, it was detection. Early warning aircraft scanned the horizon, looking for incoming threats. Fighters maintained readiness, prepared to intercept anything that approached. Below the surface, submarines moved silently, tracking movements, providing another layer of protection. The entire system worked together, integrated, coordinated, because in this environment, no single element was enough. But together, they created something powerful, a moving zone of control where the United States could operate freely and respond immediately. That presence alone had an effect, because the arrival of a carrier group changed the situation without firing a shot, without issuing a direct threat. It signaled capability. It signaled readiness. It signaled that escalation would not go unanswered. And that message mattered because during the Cold War, perception shaped decisions. Where a carrier was located, what it could reach, how quickly it could act. All of it influenced how both sides behaved. But operating a carrier like the Nimitz required precision because the margin for error was small. Flight operations had to be exact. Aircraft launching and landing in tight sequences, in changing weather, in open ocean conditions. Every movement coordinated because even a small mistake could have serious consequences. At the same time, the threat environment remained constant. Soviet aircraft monitored carrier movements. Submarines attempted to track their position. Signals intelligence sought to understand their operations. The Nimitz wasn't just projecting power. It was being watched, studied, tested, and that created a continuous tension. Because at any moment, an encounter could occur. An aircraft approaching too closely. A submarine detected nearby. A situation that required immediate response. And if you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where power wasn't just about capability, but about constant readiness, consider subscribing, because what the USS Nimitz would face next was not just the challenge of operating in contested waters, but proving that it could maintain control, even when the pressure increased. Because in the Cold War, presence alone was powerful, but presence under pressure was what defined superiority. That pressure became real the moment Soviet forces moved closer, not in open conflict, but in calculated proximity. Long-range bombers appeared on radar, approaching the carrier group from a distance, not crossing into engagement range, but close enough to test reactions, to measure response time, to observe patterns. Inside the Nimitz, the shift was immediate, from routine operations to controlled alert. Radar operators tracked the incoming aircraft. Speed, altitude, direction, everything analyzed in real time. Because the difference between observation and threat could change in seconds. Fighter crews were already prepared. Pilots moving into position. Engines starting. Aircraft lining up on the deck, waiting for the signal. Then it came. Launch. One after another, fighters were sent into the air, climbing rapidly, moving toward the incoming contacts, guided by controllers. Vectors updated constantly, because interception was not just about reaching the target. It was about positioning, arriving at the right place, at the right time. The fighters closed the distance, and soon what had been radar signals became visible. Soviet bombers, large, heavily armed, flying in formation, watching just as they were being watched. The two forces approached carefully, maintaining separation, but close enough to send a message. The American fighters took position, alongside, above, slightly offset, clear, controlled, a demonstration of presence. No aggressive moves, no sudden changes, because escalation was not the objective. Control was. Inside both aircraft, crews understood the situation. This was not combat, but it was not routine either. It was a test of discipline, of reaction, of restraint. The bombers maintained their course. The fighters maintained theirs. Each side observing, each side calculating, because every movement mattered. A turn, a change in speed, a shift in altitude. All of it could be interpreted, and interpretation in this environment could lead to escalation. Time passed, measured in seconds that felt longer, until finally the bombers adjusted course. Turning away, moving back toward international airspace, the fighters followed briefly, confirming the change, ensuring the encounter was ending, and then they broke off, returning to the carrier. Mission complete. No engagement, no escalation. But the meaning was clear, because the Nimitz had done exactly what it was designed to do: detect, respond, control, without losing stability, without crossing the line. And if you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where power is demonstrated not through conflict, but through precision, consider subscribing, because what these encounters proved was that dominance wasn't about striking first. It was about ensuring you never had to. Because when a system works perfectly, the most important outcome is that nothing happens. And that outcome was everything. In the end, the USS Nimitz didn't need to prove its power through war. Its presence was enough. Because wherever it sailed, it carried something no other platform could match. A complete, self-contained force. Air power, command, defense, all moving together, all ready to act. And that changed how the Cold War was managed, because power was no longer tied to fixed locations. It could move, shift, appear where it was needed most. For the United States, this meant something critical: control over time, the ability to respond immediately, to position forces before a situation escalated, to shape events rather than react to them. The Nimitz represented that capability, not just as a ship, but as a strategy, a way of projecting stability in unstable regions, because its presence signaled something unmistakable: that American forces were ready, that escalation would be met, that there was no gap in coverage. At the same time, it influenced the behavior of its adversaries, because Soviet forces had to account for it, track it, plan around it, and in doing so, they were reacting, not controlling. That shift mattered, because in the Cold War, control was everything, not just the ability to act, but the ability to shape how the other side acted. And the Nimitz did that, quietly, consistently, without needing to engage. Its operations extended across the globe: Mediterranean, Pacific, Indian Ocean, regions where tension could rise quickly, where presence could prevent escalation. Because sometimes the most effective action is simply being there. But that presence required more than power. It required discipline, coordination, constant readiness, because the system only worked if every part performed flawlessly, from the flight, deck crews, to the pilots in the air, to the command decisions made in seconds, each element contributing to a larger outcome: stability. That is a legacy of the USS Nimitz, not just as a carrier, but as a symbol of how the United States approached the Cold War, through strength, through technology, through the ability to operate anywhere without hesitation. Because in a conflict where escalation could happen at any moment, the greatest advantage was control. And the Nimitz delivered exactly that: a moving center of power, a constant presence, a reminder that the balance could be maintained, not just through deterrence, but through readiness. For more stories like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because some of the most important forces in history didn't just win battles, they prevented them from ever happening.